Hey there, welcome to Table to Stage. I'm Jordan Worma, and this is my podcast. My continuing mission to explore creativity through the stories and experiences of creators from my home state of Connecticut and the wider world. Today's creator comes from that wider world, that fabled Great White North. Yes, kids, the world is round, vaccines work, and Canada actually exists. J. Cole is an author, a podcaster, a yogi, and has a doctorate in metaphysics. Now, if you know what three of those are, then you're right there with me. Jay came on the show to talk about his new book, How to Calm the Fuck Down, available now on Amazon, and how he incorporates music and yoga to drive his creativity. Now, if you're a longtime listener, welcome back. And if you're new to the show, what took you so long? And thanks for coming along for the journey. If you like what you hear, or if you hate it, I'd love it if you left a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or CastBox or Podbean or whatever service you use to get your podcasts. You can also email tabletostage@gmail.com if you have a more lengthy comment or complaint. Either way, love it or hate it, I want to hear from you. All right, so let's get to J. Cole and learn how we can calm the fuck down.
I'm on the West Coast. I'm in British Columbia, but I'm actually from the East Coast, from the Maritime provinces. So Halifax, Nova Scotia is probably the biggest name that I could throw out there.
Okay.
So I was born in Halifax, and then I grew up on the East Coast most of my life, kind of bounced back and forth between there and Ontario. And later I flew out to LA, lived in LA for a year. And after LA, I said I'd never been to the West Coast, so then I came out here and just been kind of here.
Yeah. Now, the eastern part of, the whole North American continent.
Now, when I say eastern, I should say Atlantic Canada, because it's not even really the east. East kind of ends at like Montreal, like Maine. That's kind of considered east.
Right.
Then Atlantic is a whole other time zone that not too many people even know about. There's literally like 4 provinces that use this time zone.
Okay.
The whole country.
But going from that part of the country out to LA, what was that transition like for you? Because LA is such a thing and like a universe unto itself.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it out there. It was a big party, that's for sure.
No, what brought you out there?
Friends, mostly friends, and wanting to do something different. I had a friend who was a nurse, and she was moving there, and so her and her husband, we were all 3 of us friends, and we were just kind of sitting around one day and joking around, and she said like, "Oh, we were thinking about moving to LA," like just jokingly, like shrugged it off. And I was like, yeah, I'll move to LA with you guys. And they're like, what, really? Like, that was kind of the only reason that they didn't want to go, because they didn't want to go alone.
Yeah.
They didn't want to end up there with like nobody. I was like, yeah, I'll move to LA. So we put a plan into place, and then they ended up leaving within 3 months. They got their shit together. Really and I was like, whoa, like, all right. So, a year later, I'm ready to move in. And, so I just hopped on a plane, got there, and so I was in a hip-hop band for many years.
Oh.
Doing hip-hop music. And the day that I got off the plane, it was Halloween of 2015. And so hopped off the plane and went right down to Venice Beach, where I was already booked to perform a show. And I'm like, I don't even know these people. I don't know anybody. They had already hooked up a whole event. Costumes and everything was ready, so that was pretty cool.
So right off the plane in LA, right to the theater for a performance.
Exactly. I'm like, this is it.
Well, that's every day in LA, right? Everybody's putting a show on every day for somebody out there.
There's always something. That's the weird thing. There's never nothing, and there's always a human somewhere. Like, you can go out at any time of the day or night, and there's just always somebody. There's just always people.
Yeah.
It's like the city that never sleeps, like, for sure. I mean, Venice, because we lived right in Venice. We lived like a block up from Gold's Gym, the famous Gold's that made Arnold.
Sure.
And yeah, so it's kind of a retirement community. So it's a really sleepy place. The sun sets around 7:30, that classic Venice Beach sunset out of the water. And then as soon as that's done, all the shops close up, all the bars close down. And we're like, what is going on? It's like 8 o'clock at night and everybody's closing. Like, we want to party. And
Wow.
they're like, no, it's done. Like, the boardwalk's done. Do you see anybody out here? No one's coming down to this place for music or events or anything. Like, once in a while there'd be like comedy night, might stay open a little bit later or something like that. But,
yeah. That's hard to imagine a beach community shutting down that early.
I know, like, it's really not like party down there. It's really like you got to go more like up into town. And yeah, I don't know, it has like a really negative stigma because of, like, I guess there was a really big homeless problem down there on the beach, and they've really, like, I hate to say it, but cleaned things up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a horrible word to say because I've seen what they've done to the people down there. And yeah, I mean, we even like made like, relationships with some of these like homeless people. Like, they became my friend.
Yeah. Just
people you'd see every day, and they would, and they respected you too, because I guess being a hip hop artist, that didn't hurt things any, but so that was cool. But yeah, man, like, just the things that they would do, like, they would every Friday, a whole fleet of hazmats would just start blasting people with like chemical water and blasting all their stuff, and because the people start to camp out down there and put tents up.
Yeah.
It gets a little gnarly and nasty after a while. But yeah, the hazmats would go every Friday and just blast and clean it out for another week. And they would just, if you're sitting there with your stuff, like, I'm not moving, man, they would just, with cops and hazmat. It's probably cops wearing hazmat suits, to be honest.
Yeah. So
it was like the whole thing. And there's kind of, no, everybody out. We're cleaning the beach. You all have to go. And yeah, so it's such a duality in that area. Like, it's such a, man, and it like pulls on my heartstrings. Like I said, some of these were my friends.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's such weird. a different image than what I've always had in my head about, Southern California, beach life, and the idea of that sort of really aggressive. That's crazy.
I mean, there was like, in the year I was there was like three homeless people were shot by police right there for like no reason, just for being
2015.
Yeah. People would sleep on the beach. You're not allowed to sleep on the beach, but cops have these like SUVs where they deflate the tires a little bit to better drive in the sand.
Yeah.
And they parole the beach up and down, and every year a couple homeless people get run over by them too and die that way.
Oh boy.
A friend of ours, this hip hop artist, his name was Shakespeare, his artist name. He used to go down there and he worked with the homeless. He wasn't homeless himself, and a lot of people mistook him as homeless, and he was just with them all the time, and he cared for them. And now he would go down and he would help them, get into programs. He would help them get into like social assistance, like welfare.
Yeah.
He would help them get into food banks. He would help them get social security numbers. He helped them, get their life going. He helped people get into apartments. He helped people get their lives turned around. And so there was this hotel down on the beach, and the owner of the hotel got one of his goons to go out because he didn't like the homeless people being out there. He was like, oh, they're ruining business. Like, got his goon. He said, go fire a couple rounds at them. And so this guy went out and just fired a gun, and everybody ran. Well, they ended up killing my friend Shakespeare.
Oh, God.
And so the owner of that hotel ended up going to prison because of this. And I'm assuming the goon who he sent out too. And yeah, I think it's like one of like the more famous. It's right on Venice Beach. I can't remember the name of the hotel. I'm pretty sure it's like pink, painted pink on the outside.
I hate it's odd to try to transition away from that. I feel like there's so much to talk about in just that alone.
We could be here all day just talking about that one thing, man. Yeah. So as like, as a Canadian, we don't have gun violence per se here. It's not like a big thing. And to see that go down, you're just like, what? Like, what is going on? This is nuts. This is nuts. One of the main things that I remember was when I was there, the anonymous people, like
the hacker group,
they did this thing called, they did this day of protests called the Million Mask March. Well, we were like in Hollywood, just having a beer in a little pub, and all of a sudden there's a whole SWAT team, full gear, ready for a riot, and there's all the anonymous guys on the other side of the street, and we're sitting there. We're right by the window, and it's one of those windows where there's no glass. You can literally just reach out onto the street, and then there's these like police officers right there, and we're just going like, hey guys, like, we don't want any violence today. We're all just here, we're all just trying to live, have a good time. And he's like, you guys should probably get back from the window. This is gonna get nasty. And so we're like, no, we're not leaving, man. We got the best seat in the house right now.
Oh man!
And I don't know what they were thinking, but they just thought some like huge riot was going to break out. Meanwhile, there's just these people with the Guy Fawkes mask, just parading up and down the street like it was a thing that had been planned months and months in advance. They had all the permits they needed. Like, it was all totally a legit thing, but because of the negative, I guess, anti-capitalism that's attached with Anonymous, the police were like, oh no, this isn't happening. Like,
right.
we're not letting this go down.
How long had you been in LA or in the US, I guess, before you started seeing all this kind of stuff?
That was literally like within the first month of being. So the riot squad went down in the first month. And then the shootings happened 3 or 4 months after. And then my friend who got shot on the beach, that was like right as I left. That was like pretty much like a couple of days before I left.
And how long had you been in Southern California at this point when you finally took off?
I had been there for a year.
Okay.
So I'd been there, actually overstayed my welcome by 6 months. I was only allowed to be there 6 months.
Oh, like on a temporary visa?
Yeah. Well, just on like a travel visa.
Yeah.
And because we were playing playing hip hop shows, and then doing graphic design was a big part of my life, and making music videos, filming, doing a lot of artistic stuff like that. We just managed to keep things going like that. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stay. Like, I don't see a reason to leave. I'll leave if I get caught and they tell me to go home, then I'll go home. And the reason why I actually ended up leaving at the end was because my passport was going to expire, and I had to get out because there was no way to get a new passport. I would have had to go to the embassy, and they would have been like, oh, well, what are you doing here? You should have left 6 months ago, buddy. Like, you can't even stay here anymore. And because of that, I didn't know what the law was. I didn't know if they just...
Well, I don't think anybody does. I think that's intentional.
Yeah, but like if I actually walked in to the embassy and said like, hey, I need a new passport, I'm a dummy, and they catch me, I don't know if they just put you in handcuffs and put you on a plane and deport you, or do I get to go home and get my belongings and say my goodbyes and everything? Like, I don't know how this is going to go down. So I was like, passport's expiring at the end of this month. I'm like, I should probably just get out of here.
Yeah. Now,
regroup.
How did you end up getting into hip hop? Is there a big hip hop scene in the great Northern Territories?
Well, let me tell you, I started listening to hip hop music in 1989, and I got a Rap Tracks cassette tape. I had asked my mom for Rap Tracks, and the kids at school were listening to this thing called rap, and I didn't like it at first, but it kind of grew on me. It had a catchy rhythm, and I started listening to the lyrics, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, they have a lot to say. Before that, I would listen to what my parents listened to, which was country music, which was really slow, long, drawn-out lyrics, very repetitive with choruses and all that. And then I was hearing this hip-hop music, which was like reading a book. It was like 50 songs in 50 words in a country music song, and there's like 5,000 words in a rap song. I'm like, I'm learning so much from this, just from listening to a song. I'm gleaming all of these like deeper insights too, coming from very creative poets, especially back in the 80s. It wasn't this like what we have now with like, it's so it's so poppy now. It's very
Right.
like pop glam.
Who were the artists that you were drawn to back in the late 80s then?
So I was really into KRS-One.
Yeah, okay.
I was into De La Soul,
All right.
Tribe Called Quest, and then Beastie Boys came later, and I guess like, and then later came things like Ice Cube and Snoop Doggy Dogg and that kind of stuff,
Right.
West Coast rap stuff, and then later into Wu-Tang Clan. Uh, and then I started getting into like Canadian hip hop artists, and there was this group actually from here in British Columbia, and this is when I was in high school, and I looked at my buddy and I was like, man, like these are just a couple guys from here in Canada. We could do this. And so we each went home, and we were kind of like nerdy technical guys.
Uh-huh.
And so we each went home to our computers. Like I was building my own computers. It's like 95-ish. I'm building them.
Okay.
I had a catalog. I'm ordering motherboards and parts and RAM sticks, and I'm putting these things together.
Back when you had to do it from a catalog too, you couldn't even order your computer parts from the computer.
No, you couldn't. And now here's the other weird thing. I had to get the catalog from a licensed retailer in town because you couldn't just order the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I made friends at the computer store because I had broken my computer so many times. And I would go in there. Even back then, it was like $80 an hour to have your computer repaired. And these guys were nice enough. They let me go in the back and watch what they were doing every once in a while. And so I learned from them, how to fix my mistakes.
Yeah.
And then, I made friends with them. And then eventually they were like, okay, yeah, we'll order you some parts, man. So they gave me the catalog, and we had a good rapport that way. So I went home and I started figuring out how to make beats. How do I make a beat on a computer? What do you do? How do you make a drum loop? How do you get a piano to loop? How do you do all the things?
Right.
And so my friend and I, we just plugged away at it and figured it out, started making beats, and then you would make an instrumental beat and then listen to it on repeat for a couple hours, and you'd sit there and just write lyrics. Writing very long length prose that just rambled on for hours, not thinking about breathing spaces, not thinking about stanzas, or not thinking about, it's just literally just blocks of text. Right. Some of the words would rhyme once in a while. And that just kind of grew. So you listen to my show, my podcast, Beyond the Mat. So I made the instrumental for that, and I wrote and recorded the little rap song at the first. That's me. It's gotten a lot better over the years. And,
yeah, I mean, you do have some music available on your website too, where you've sampled some other stuff and done your own, lyrical verses over that. So you're still doing music regularly these days?
Not regularly, very sporadically and very spread out. So when I left LA, I don't know. When I came back to Canada, I was like, okay, the whole like sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing, I'm like, I'm getting kind of old. It's been fun. I appreciate everything it's given me, made lots of friends, had so many experiences, toured, been all over the place. And I'm like, I just got to do something different. I want to get my health in check.
Right.
Just want a whole new life. While I was in LA, I had gotten into yoga. So I hadn't done yoga before that. I had tried it like 4 or 5 years before, and I was like, whatever, it's not really my thing. I was asking my grandfather, this is like also back in the day, 2007, what the illnesses were in my family so that I could know what to look for, maybe do some preventative measures. And he was like, arthritis is really bad in our family. So that's kind of the worst thing. So I said, okay. And my research brought me to learn that yoga will help out arthritis. It won't get any better, but it won't get any worse as long as you do yoga a couple times a week.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, that's great. I don't feel the arthritis now. See you later, yoga. When I was in LA, I mean, the climate is beautiful there, but then it rained. And I mean, it hadn't rained in 6 months, 6 to 9 months hadn't rained. But when it rained, it got really humid and it really affected my body. And I felt those arthritis pains. I was like, oh, this is it. Well, you know what you got to do?
Yeah.
You got to start the yoga, man. You got to start. And So I just started watching these YouTube videos, and I'd be in my bedroom and trying these and falling over and getting up and falling over again. I'm like, this is really hard. I thought this was easy. I thought it was just stretching, man. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not. There's so much more to it. And so I watched probably 100 different YouTube videos, and nothing was like jiving, nothing was clicking. And so a friend of mine from Canada here, my friend Victoria, she was like, oh, you need yoga with Adrienne. She's the best. So I looked up this yoga with Adrienne, and yeah, she really is the best. So much, in fact, that even now that I'm a certified teacher, I still watch yoga with Adrienne, like pretty much every day. I use that. And
That's a YouTube channel that you're still watching?
Yeah,
Wow.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you become a teacher, you kind of think that like, oh, I don't need to, I can do it all on my own now. And I don't need someone else to guide me through. But here's the thing. When you're following your own class, it's a lot different. It's a whole other world. You're the one giving the cues, or you're maybe reading off of a sheet if it's a new flow that you made or whatever. You're trying to remember everything.
Well, I would guess that your headspace is just very different in those two things.
Exactly. Right. You're thinking, you're totally engaged, and you're worried about everything.
Sure.
Whereas when you're listening to someone else cue you through the poses, it's so much easier. You're just like, you can get into that flow state. You just shut your brain off. So yoga is like, really, it's like marrying the breath with the body. So you're every part of a pose, they know when to say. So as you do this, you're going to breathe in. And then as we do this, everybody breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And it goes like that.
So you went from writing hip hop songs where you weren't leaving time for breathing to yoga where the whole thing revolves around making space for your breath.
Exactly.
Now, did you find that, practicing yoga was something that helped you in other areas? I mean, I know it was important for you to start doing that from a health standpoint, but did you find that it carried over into other areas? Like specifically, like, did you find that it helped open up new creative avenues for you, or did you notice anything else that it started to touch in your life?
Yeah. So, man, it's one of those things. It's so encompassing around everything. It will definitely integrate itself into your life in many other subtle ways that you don't really notice at first. And yeah, so subtle energies is such a weird thing, and you can talk about it all the time. Unless you've experienced it, it's really hard to put your finger on what that even means or what it even feels like. Just microscopic amounts of energy, increased flexibility, muscles are toned, stomach's flat, things are looking good that way. You start feeling good about yourself, increases your self-esteem a little bit.
Yeah.
You kind of have this like, I can do that kind of mentality, like, oh, I can do that. You don't feel like, you don't second guess yourself about maybe if you had to jump into the street to save someone, you wouldn't even think about it. Like, oh, I might hurt myself. You just kind of leap and do things. Mostly physical. The mental I find comes from, so after about like a 90-minute yoga class, you kind of drop into this flow state, and flow state is just this totally optimal way of being. This is when you're completely at one with yourself, at one with the universe.
Right.
And again, words don't even describe what being in a flow state is like. Artists, when they're painting, get into a flow. Musicians get into flow, singing. Dancers get into flow. Runners, especially runners who do running on like a straight and narrow road where there's not going to be any stop signs or turns or anything, kind of like countryside running. Those people really drop into flow quickly too. 20, 30 minutes, because they don't have to think. They're just running. Just go. It happens. Again, it's really hard to describe with words. There's an interesting group called the Flow Genome Project who are really getting into the nitty-gritty of this stuff, the scientific side of everything.
Huh.
If anyone really wants to research flow states, look up the Flow Genome Project.
Interesting.
And they have these like Facebook groups where once in a while, I mean, they have this like packages that they sell where they can teach people how to get quickly and better into flow states through things like having a set routine in your life. So every morning you kind of get up and do the exact same thing in the same order every day. That helps it. That doesn't put you in flow state, but doing these things, these routines, allow you to later on get into the flow state.
Right.
It's such a weird thing too, because you wouldn't think those two would be related in any way, but it somehow is, and it's somehow scientifically proven, and they have all the data about it. So really, really cool people to check out. And so while they do have these courses that they do, and I think some of them are like $400 or $500 for a course, and weekend retreats and all that kind of stuff, they do a lot of free courses on their Facebook group. So that's kind of cool for anyone who just wants to, dip their toe into the water.
Sure.
And check the temperature.
Now, how did you take your experience with yoga, both as somebody who practices and somebody who teaches it, and kind of take that experience and turn it into, because I mean, you do a podcast of your own that you kind of have carried over it seems to be you've carried over the mentality of a yogi into doing these podcasts. Is that an intentional, like a conscious thing for you?
It wasn't really. So I started my first podcast back in 2011 after I had started listening to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Okay.
And
yeah, he's a springboard for a lot of people.
Yeah, and like even his show was like maybe only a year old back then. I think he only started like really podcasting in 2010. And my friend was like, "Oh man, you got to listen to this. It's cool." And I was like, "Dude," I was like, "Really? You're listening to talk radio?" And I just couldn't get into it. And my buddy would put this stuff on, and Joe would be talking with comedians, and then finally they started talking about like magic mushrooms and werewolves and aliens, and I was like, whoa, okay. you caught my interest. All right, I like this now. And that was it. I was hooked from then on. I was like, here's my idea. I'm going to do a podcast. Being in the music industry back then as well, I was like, I have a vast network to draw upon. I'm going to interview all my musician friends and make a podcast about it. So that was, and I was a bit more rude and crude back then, so my show was called The Jerk Off Hour.
Okay.
Like we're just kind of screwing around, just some friends chatting. And there wasn't topics or anything like that. Like I would have a guest come in, and I would just ask them like, okay, 3 questions. How did you get into your craft? Where are you now in your craft? And where are you going with it later on? Because I figured those were pretty good questions to ask in case I didn't want a musician, in case it was an artist, in case it was just something different that's not music. I didn't always want it to be, have to be centered around music. So like I had a magician friend on there. He would explain all how he got into magic, and where he's at with magic now and where he hopes to be in the future.
Yeah.
And
where is he with the magic now?
He was in, where was it? San Francisco at a magic conference, I think.
Okay.
It's like a week ago. Yeah.
So still doing it then.
Still rocking and rolling, yeah. And
how many different podcasts have you been involved with?
So this will be my 4th right now. Yeah, so the ones after that, I don't know. They weren't as cool as the first one. The last one before now, it was just simply called My Name, The J. Cole Show. And that was the one. I was still doing the same thing, interviewing musicians and friends and activists and just anybody who's interesting, who I wanted to talk to, who I thought could share some really cool stuff.
Yeah. That's
the one that I brought that one to LA with me. And when I was in LA, I'd done like, I think 3 recordings, and 2 of them were like, I don't know. I think I said some things on the show. Can you maybe delete that and we'll do another one? And I was like, no edits. No, I'm putting it out. They're like, no, man, like I said some things, like I really don't want that on there. And I'm like, so that kind of thing started happening so many times that I was like, I think it's done. Like, I think my show is done.
Okay.
It's time to just like end this, and it is what it is, and just kind of cap it off after about 100 episodes, I guess. So, that was kind of discouraging, disappointing, but it had to happen. And then this one, after I had gotten my yoga teacher training certification, I did a little trek back to Atlantic Canada to go visit my family and everything. So I hadn't seen them now in probably 3 years. And I just want to say hi to my mom and my dad and my brother. And my brother, just kind of jokingly, he goes, beyond the yoga mat. Jay, that's your next podcast. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. So I wrote it down on my phone.
Uh-huh.
Probably 9 months to a year later, I started Beyond the Mat podcast. And immediately I just started, I have a friend who teaches meditation. So I was like, no, I'll get him on the show. Yoga teachers who I went to school with out here have been on the show. And then I just started digging into the internet to try and find guests. And I would join podcast groups online on Facebook and just try and get into these different networks. And I found something called podcastguests.com. It's literally all they do is connect podcasters with guests and guests who want to be on a podcast. And it's amazing. And there's some really solid people on there. Great conversationalists. Nobody was really like weird about talking about themselves, which is really good. Yeah, because as you probably well know, I mean, there's once in a while you get a guest. It's like, this is my first time doing this.
Oh, I've gotten a lot of those. Yeah,
the answers you get are like, "Yep, nope."
Well, there's a comfort level that is really required to be able to answer a question fully without a whole lot of prompting. It takes time,
you got to put yourself out there too. Like, that's what this is all about, sharing and being real and being raw and exposed. So like, I have no qualms talking about anything I've ever done, like from parties and drug use to women and it doesn't matter. Like, any of the things I've ever done, I have no problem talking about it.
Yeah.
Even the bad things that I've done, I'll talk about them too. Like, I'm pretty sure I just talked about being an illegal alien in the United States with you.
This is a direct feed. This is a direct feed to the Border Patrol. So, all right.
What are they calling it?
ICE.
It's on the news. ICE, ICE. Oh my God. They had to give it a cool name too, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, it's real cool.
ICE.
No,
they probably play that song too. You're as cold as ice.
Oh yeah, put it on the speakers. They probably play that when
when they're harassing people. They probably play that like as they're walking. I don't know what they do.
So your podcast Beyond the Mat, the artwork for that says Beyond the Mat with Dr. J. So tell me about the doctor part. You're a PhD in metaphysics?
So it's metaphysics. It's not really called a PhD. It's called something. It's called something weird, and I keep forgetting it. It's like MSCD, I believe.
Okay.
And it's not something I ever put on a business card or anything.
Yeah.
That is kind of a weird and interesting story as well.
Okay.
So there was a year, many moons ago, I dressed up as the great late Dr. Hunter S. Thompson for Halloween.
Oh, sure. Okay.
The Fear and Loathing Las Vegas guy, he used to write for magazines. I don't know. I believe he's a very popular author.
Oh yeah.
In my world, and I think a lot of people know who he is. And I went all out. I shaved my head with a Bic razor to give myself the horseshoe haircut. I had the golf shoes. I had the floral shirt and the dress khaki pants.
You take a lawyer everywhere with you?
I had my lawyer. I had the little thing that your cigarette goes in, the little cigarette holder. Like, I had the whole thing. And it was really cool. It went over so well that I was like, I love this outfit. I'm just going to wear this kind of shit every day.
Yeah.
So I bought like 25 floral shirts. I bought all these dress pants so I could literally close my eyes, reach in my closet, and pull out anything, and it would always work. I wore the fedoras and everything, and the aviators. So my grandfather had passed away by this point, and he had, I think, 20 pairs of aviators in a drawer. And I was like, oh, I like aviators. So that's where those came from. I wanted to know more. I was like, so who is this man that I idolize? I've only read Fear and Loathing once, like back in the day. I've seen the movie a few times. Bill Murray played him in
Where the Buffalo Roam. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Great movie, yeah. He almost like did a better job, I think, than Johnny Depp did.
Yeah, it was Peter Boyle. Peter Boyle played the lawyer in that one, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's his name was Lonzo or something?
Yeah, I'll never remember that.
No. So I was like, who is this guy? I need to know more. And as I delved deeper into the research, I found out that before Hunter S. Thompson went on, I think it was a Johnny Carson show for the first time, he wanted people to respect him more. And he found this place that was handing out doctorates. And that's where he went in and got his doctorate. And that was it. He just wanted to be respected. He wanted to have those initials in front of his name.
Right.
And so the doctorate comes from a place called the ULC in Modesto, California. So that's the Universal Life Church. They do ordinations. There's like tons of people have been ordained there. There's like this famous woman who sings. I can't remember. I'm so spacing on this right now. Anyways, there's tons of like famous people who've been there, who've done this kind of stuff. And as I was like looking at this website, I was like, oh, so it still exists. So they're still around. Like this isn't just something from back in the 60s. Like this is still here. So I'm looking them up and they're like, yeah, you can get all these credentials online and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. And I'm like, could I get a doctorate? And I started looking through and like, yeah, sure enough, you can do the courses. And I mean, you got to pay for them and everything, and you got to do the work, and you got to do all the tests, and you got to do all the things you got to do. But the interesting thing was there was a screen that came up and said, like, while you wait for your package, why not get ordained as an official minister at the Universal Life Church? So I was like, all right, I'll do that too. So the ordination paper came in the mail first.
Wow.
with like a certificate. So Reverend Jason Cole from the UL.
So Yogi, Reverend, Doctor. What are you missing?
RN. I don't want any more, man. My plate is full.
Oh wow.
I've had enough.
Okay.
So it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah. Now this journey that you've been on you've now got this book that the title alone draws me to it, because if there's anything I need to be able to do is calm the fuck down sometimes. and your book, How to Calm the Fuck Down, Meditation for the Blue Collars, is available now on Amazon and I don't know where else, but tell me, how did you come to write this book? What was the impetus for you to put this sort of is it a self-help book? Is that because that's what it sounds like?
It kind of is a self-help book. It's kind of a manual. It's kind of just information about a lot of things that are already out there that a lot of people just wouldn't package together in one place, because there's so many different styles of meditation, and everybody thinks theirs is the only way and theirs is the best way, and they shun other people who are doing it their way. And it's very cliquey. It's very churchy that way. It's such I don't know. It's gotten to be this weird thing when it's like all it is sitting and closing your eyes, people. Everything else is just extra. Everything else is just stuff they've added to sell you a bigger package kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know meditation generally is free, but some of it isn't free, which we can talk about that in a minute. So I guess I just got to flash back here to like 2016, before yoga school. I decided to try going gluten-free with my diet.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
just to try it, I'm going to do 30 days and see how I feel. Well, I felt amazing. I went home after the 30 days. I threw everything with gluten in it. I threw it out. I donated it. I gave it to my friends and neighbors. I got rid of it all. And then I was like, well, if I'm doing this, I wonder how hard being a vegan is. So I tried doing vegan, which when you get into like this yoga stuff, so my yoga school, they talked a lot about spirituality, Hinduism, all the gods with Krishna and Vishnu and Shiva and all this stuff. And, I mean, it's really so closely intertwined with yoga, being as how like all the yoga terms are all Sanskrit words anyways.
Right.
Which you have to learn most of them. And which I've now forgotten because that's something else I learned. No one cares. It sounds cool for a minute. Yeah, you know what you're talking about. Okay, please just speak English now.
Right, yeah.
And one of the things that you get into when you learn about this stuff is, so I've kind of always believed in the idea of reincarnation, and I've always kind of not wanted to come back again. And through following these maps that these people have been following for thousands and thousands of years, it's all laid out. They've figured it out. And they say, if you don't want to get reincarnated, you have to practice something called ahimsa. Ahimsa means to harm none, to do no harm to others, to speak no harm. So, I mean, that ties in with being a vegan already. I was like, okay, I got some of that on point. I'm still downloading some pirated movies once in a while. I guess you gotta stop all the bad things. You gotta cut it all out.
Right.
And to live this kind of path. This, I guess, tied in with meditation as well. We did a lot of meditation in our yoga school. And man, I started meditating when I was 9 years old. I was having fights with my brother and sister on vacation that were just getting too much. And I don't know why. I went and sat on a rock and I crossed my legs, closed my eyes, and this calm and this peace washed over the land. The fighting was over. When you have three siblings, it's always 2 against 1. So when you take one out of the equation, the other 2 go off and play nicely together.
Right.
And so like my grandparents would be with us at the cottage in the summer, and it would just be a big fight. And like, this is their vacation. Like, they still had jobs. They weren't retired. So by going and sitting down on this rock for an hour or so, it fixed everything. And I would meditate off and on throughout my life. Not so much in my 20s, through all the partying, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the music and the touring. Intermittent at best.
Mm-hmm.
More so into my 30s, really ramped up. And that's where meditation came from for me. And then just researching it throughout the years, learning what all the different techniques and styles are. So I had all of this information. I had just finished yoga school. I'm practicing ahimsa. Like I said, I had traveled back to the Atlantic Canada to go visit my family. And right away, people are like, oh, you're into yoga? Like, do you know anything about meditation? And I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, can you teach me how to meditate? I was like, yeah, for sure. Well, everyone I would run into was like asking me, like, can you teach me how to meditate? I really need to get this. Like, I keep hearing about it on the news. It's on TV all the time. Like, all my favorite Hollywood people are into this thing, and I really want to do it. After enough people asked me, I was like, okay, I can't just go teach everybody meditation one at a time, one-on-one like this.
Right.
I mean, it's so simple anyways. I'm going to do a workshop. So I put together a workshop. I have a PowerPoint presentation with like 100 different slides, and then the little speaker's notes that goes along with it. I rented out a hall in my community. I put up actual print posters all over town. Everyone asking me about meditation. I'm like, yes, come to the event. It's on Saturday or whatever. Okay, cool. Well, 3 people showed up. I'm like, okay, great. I tried it a couple more times. 3-4 people at the most would show up. I'm like, this isn't going to work. The way my class was designed, I'm picturing like 20 people in a room. I bounce a ball. I throw it at you. You catch the ball. We answer some questions back and forth. You keep everybody involved. You make it fun, like a game and everything. I had games all laid out. We were going to do these puzzles with paper and stuff. And yeah, it's not going to happen with 3 people. Like, the energy's not there. It's just not happening.
Right.
I was like, okay. And then I said, what if I write my speaker's notes? So I went home, took all the speaker's notes. I'm going to rewrite these into a book. meditation book. So every time someone says,
okay.
how do I meditate? I'm going to say, I wrote a book just for you. Here you go. Give me $5 or something, you know?
Yeah.
So I did that. I wrote the book. And then as I was sitting there looking at it, I was like, it just hit me. I was like, this is just another hippy dippy woo woo bullshit meditation book. It's going to end up in the new age section in a discount bin at the local library or something or at the bookstore. And I was like, this is just crap, man. Like, I got all this, like, again, all these Sanskrit words in there and got all this stuff that nobody's really going to understand, you know?
Right.
I was like, this sucks. So I put it on the back burner. I don't know. Once I got out west here in British Columbia again, I was walking downtown one day. I was walking past a job site, like a construction site. And then I heard this loud clang, and someone had thrown a wrench, like a big, like monkey wrench, had thrown it at another guy. And the other guy threw a hammer at the other guy. And they're throwing tools. The tools are hitting.
Oh my God.
They're swearing. And then the fists started flying. Everybody dropped what they were doing. A big circle huddled around these guys. And I just jokingly to myself, I was like, well, if anyone needs meditation, it's those guys. That was it. That was my aha moment. I was like, oh my God, that's it. Meditation for the blue collar workers, for people like this who freak out. I've worked these jobs myself. I've worked some of this stuff. My dad didn't want us to ever have to do this stuff. So he really put us through the ringer when we were young, just to kind of like, you know, like work it out of us. Like, this is what hard labor is all about, kids. But, you know, things don't always go according to dad's plans, as I say in the book. And I ended up working some of these jobs, my brother and I. And yeah, it's not for me, man. Like, there's just this like male chauvinism about it. There's just everybody's kind of an asshole to each other. There's a lot of fighting and arguing and tension all the time. And it just, I don't know. That wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
But I had the knowledge and I had like a good foundation to draw from, like the terms and everything. I know how to put up drywall. I've done lots of drywalling, painted. I've studded up houses. I poured concrete. Like, I know a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to rewrite this for blue collar workers. So I sat down, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody listening, but I had this like light Southern accent going through my head, just in that world. I don't know why. A lot of these people, in my experience, who I've worked with, have kind of had, like, they've been from the countryside.
Sure.
There's not a lot of city people aren't into this, so it doesn't matter what province you're in, or what state you're in. I guess the more further country you go, there's this kind of valley twang. People start talking like this, and I was like, oh, that kind of voice was going through my head as I was writing. So I remember, like, after writing a page or two, like cycling back and putting that little footnote at the first that says, "This book is best read with a light Southern accent." think Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
Yeah, if you put his voice and then you read this book, it's like, look, guys, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be one of you, because I'm not.
Right.
I'm not going to put on some jeans and boots with a plaid shirt and act like I'm your pal or your buddy, because I'm not. You know, like, it just kind of ties in with who I've been involved with in the trades anyways.
How did you, like, because when I think of yoga and I think of meditation and I think of, you know, new age health practices, blue collar workers are exactly the group that I think of as the people that are practicing these things. Obviously not. Like,
no,
like it's the kind of thing where I imagine that the initial response from that group of people has to be rather dismissive. Like, what could this possibly have to do with me? How does this relate to anything that has to do with my life? Was there, other than the accent, was there some bridge that you figured out as a way to kind of bring such what may appear to be such an outside thing to a group of people who wouldn't necessarily be, I don't imagine they'd be receptive to it without some sort of of connection made to
Right.
make it seem relevant to their lives.
So on the cover of the book is kind of how I reached out to everybody that way. So I did my own graphic design. I've got a yellow hard hat, there's a blue plaid shirt, some blue jeans, and a work boot. I didn't even name the thing until the book was finished because I couldn't figure out what to call this. And then it hit me and I was like, oh, I know. And it's in your face. It's rude. It's got the image in behind because you got your worker guy in behind with the clothing and the outfit and how to calm the fuck down. I thought that's really going to scream at people off of a shelf. It's going to jump out. It's going to catch their attention. They're going to see the colors in behind that they relate to, like, oh, a hard hat and a plaid shirt. And then in the tagline, meditation for blue collar workers. So I guess that was kind of my main idea, marketing idea anyways, of how to, like, you know, get people to even open this thing up.
Right.
It's just basically seeing the word fuck on a book about meditation. It's like, these are not two things that you normally see together, but it's definitely something more relatable to a guy like that who's, you know, down in the dirt every day, you know, toiling away doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I guess, like I said before, just through using the illusions and the similes and metaphors related to any kind of construction things that I've done in my life, yes, talking about building a foundation, you need a proper set of tools to build your house, but then once your house is built, you don't need the tools anymore. You just kind of throw them away. You keep a couple in, you know, the garage or whatever, but you don't need all the tools that were used to build your house.
Right.
And that's kind of what this book is. It's a book of tools that you can use to build your house of meditation, and then throw the book away. You know, give it to somebody, burn
Right.
it. I don't care as long as it was paid for first. So yeah, I guess that's probably the best example of how it ties into people.
Yeah. How did you settle on the title? Were you hesitant to put, you know, how to calm the fuck down, like right up front like that? I'm asking specifically because, like, when I think of blue collar workers, I think largely of a conservative group, probably a religious group, and I wonder if that might be off-putting, or has it been sort of a magnet to really attract the attention of the folks that it's meant to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did have a little bit of pushback from a couple people who, for whatever reason, are in my network, and I couldn't even figure out why, who were like, man, they're like, I love everything you do, but I can't support this. It has the F word on it. It's not going to fly with my church group. And I'm thinking, like, well, don't show it to your church group, man.
Right,
right. Yeah, so a few people definitely expressed that, but there's so few and far between that it didn't really matter. I mean, I wasn't, you know, it's not for them. If they don't like the title, then they're not going to like what's written inside, because it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. Yeah, I mean, I had seen other books with the F word in the bookstore, especially there's several of them in the self-help area too.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, it's 2019. If you're getting hung up on a word, then,
you know, it's like television. If you look at TV, even TV is really stretching things now with the swear words that they say. Just regular network TV, and then with Netflix, yeah. It's a no holds barred on Netflix, anything goes kind of thing. So yeah, I think that we're moving into a new world in a new age. Like you said, it's 2019 now, so I think people have kind of gotten over that whole thing.
So what do you think is the next project for you? It seems like you seem to be rather project oriented. Do you have something else in mind? Trying
out new wacky Hollywood diets as they come along. That's a passion of mine.
Yeah.
For writing books, so I wrote a fantasy novel in 2004. I finished it in 2011. Then I just kind of put it aside, and I never thought about it again.
Yeah.
And I've recently dug that out. So that's like Jay from 2004 and how my mind was back then. And now I'm doing another rewrite of that. And it's like, man, you were such an idiot. What were you thinking? You think this is a good story? No.
Wow.
So literally, when I started rewriting, the first page of the book turned into 4 pages. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a really long book. This is going to be really long because it's already really long.
Yeah.
It's like 500 pages of like 8.5, 11 sheets. And that's not the size of a book. Books are really small. So the smaller a book gets, the thicker it gets.
So what you have is a trilogy.
What I have is, another Lord of the Rings, and it's a fantasy novel too. And I'm like, so I'm kind of even on the fence about that. I'm like, there's thousands and thousands of fantasy novels out there. And I'm like, what makes this one good? What makes it stand out? Is it the hero's journey? What is happening within this storyline with these arcs and everything? Like, that's kind of I don't know. It's a weird thing to try and sift through. My other idea is something that I say often, is kind of my catchphrase, is too many steps. If there's too many steps, I'm probably not doing it. I like to cut out the middleman as much as possible. So I'm trying to think of a way to integrate every time I say too many steps. I need to probably just write it down and somehow work that into my next book. That would be more along this kind of like self-help kind of path.
Yeah.
And then I've written some short stories as well. There was a really cool one that I started working on 2 years ago about a boy who goes through like a portal in a new house that they moved into, and it kind of switches him into this different parallel universe kind of thing. That's just kind of like the basic premise of it, and then all the crap that comes along with that. And I guess the other thing is that, like, with my brain, like right now, my now mind, like looking at this fantasy novel, I'm like, how can I try and integrate some of my new knowledge back into this book? Like, I need to, I want to convey like maybe some meditation kind of thoughts within this book. Because for me, whenever I've read a book, those have been the best books, is when you glean some kind of knowledge from the story that was just in there as part of the story, but you're actually learning something about it in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
You're being entertained and you're learning. It's like edutainment kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's always the most fun way to learn something anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And it like you don't know you're learning. You're just reading this entertaining book, and next thing you know, you've like, I know how to meditate. And you don't even know how you know, but you've been reading about it, subtly intertwined between this guy's journey that he's going on and the things he's had to go through.
You've been tricked into learning something new.
That's right.
So where can people find your stuff online, and is the book available in stores, or is it just online?
Right now it's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's like 10. It's cheaper in the States because of the conversion or whatever. It's $10 for a print book here, $5 for an ebook. So I think that's $7 for a print book for you guys, and $3.50 or $3 for an ebook.
It is currently $7.50 on Amazon for the paperback, and $3.77 for the Kindle version.
There we go.
So that is sounds like a bargain.
Yeah.
What about like?
But not a bargain. Not from the bargain bin though.
No, of course not.
This is top shelf material.
And what about
if people want to find me? I'm quite active on Instagram, so I'm still using my yoga handle. So it's J Cole Yoga, JayColeYoga. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the platforms. My website, same thing, jcoleyoga.ca. To email, j@jcoleyoga.ca. I have a YouTube channel, J Cole Yoga.
Yeah, I mean your website's got all kinds of stuff. Have your book, you have your yoga classes, and stuff that we didn't even have time to touch on today. But do original art and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, lots of my hand-drawn art. I mean, it's just prints, but I'll mail those out to people. I try and write blogs every once in a while. I try and put recipes, like vegan and gluten-free recipes on there, especially since I got into doing the ketogenic diet, the high-fat, low-carb. I started creating my own recipes that didn't have any carbs, that were like delicious sweet snacks that people could make. So I'm trying to get all that on there.
All right.
Yeah. So it's a really good smorgasbord of all the good things.
Oh,
And
yeah,
my
the podcast on there, too, yeah.
Beyond the Mad.
Yeah, where can you get that? Is that like on, is it on iTunes? And
It's on everything that's popular. So Apple, iTunes, Apple, Google Play. It's on Spotify. The host site is called Anchor.fm. I really like them. It's a really cool podcast platform. And like I said, I started doing podcasts in 2011. Everything was done manually. You would open up your RSS feed was opened in a notepad, and you would manually do the code. And if one space or one dot or apostrophe or comma was off, it wouldn't verify, it wouldn't validate. iTunes wouldn't upload your show for that week.
Yeah.
So now that I'm with one of these podcast networks, it's great.
Yeah, it's really come a long way in the last 10 years as the platform has grown. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and help me to calm the fuck down. How are you feeling now?
Awesome. I feel like I need to go meditate.
I know somebody that can help you with that. There's a YouTube channel you could go check out. Thanks to J. Cole for coming on the show to talk about his book and his personal journey. That's a story that has not been told on this show before, for sure. Now, make sure to check out his website at jcoleyoga.ca or get a preview of the book over at that little-known internet vendor, Amazon. And, of course, if you are so inclined, make sure to hit the subscribe button on your podcast player so you don't miss new episodes of Table to Stage when they come out every Tuesday. And since you're on the podcast app already, go ahead and throw a few stars my way or leave a review. Those are really awesome. And if you'd like to support the show in a more concrete way, you can join at patreon.com/tabletostage to become a monthly contributor, or you can hit up ko-fi.com/tabletostage to feed my caffeine habit. I think that's it for this week, kids. Thanks for coming along. Until next time, keep creating.